you guys is who is who here. So
We are the producers. We're the Supple Boys. We work for Ryan. I'm Ethan, and that's Griffin.
I'm Griffin.
hey,
And I'm
Ethan,
Ryan.
Hey Griffin. What's
How's
up,
it
guys?
Hey, man. Awesome.
Let me grab a sparkling water, Ryan.
We are live.
Oh,
So
hell yeah.
no more swearing. Just kidding. You can swear all you want.
I'm sorry that I ruined that one kid's stream. I still feel bad about it.
When you came in and were
They
swearing in
gotta
the
hear-
kids stream.
You gotta hear these words somehow. You don't want to, they'll learn it on the street otherwise.
I'm just glad you guys are on headphones so my kids can't hear you.
Yeah.
Good call. A good call. Hell yeah. Oh my god. What episode is this? Is this 50? Is this episode 50 technically?
I don't know.
Technically.
It's definitely upload 50. It's cool. This is the first. No, I was gonna say it's the first time we've had two guests, unless you count the time that we had Donnie and Frank Thierry on.
And Donnie and Scott Snyder.
And
Anytime we've had Donnie and a guest.
That's true. That's true. Dakota's here. I was literally listening to Spider-Man Rewind, and my boys dropped this on me. Yeah, I guess so.
I can't believe people
Drop
listen to
what
that.
on you? This is stream. Wow, Ryan. Wow.
I'm just saying.
People love hearing us talk about Spider-Man. For your information.
Yeah, we're big Spidey fans. It's a very unique personality trait that we have.
Do we got any? Let me see. I just bought this on a whim. This dope Batman Beyond Funko. I don't usually care about this, but this is kind of neat, like metallic finish on there.
Oh yeah.
I work at Target most of the time, and they just got this exclusive line of Funko stuff. They had this like blacklight Doctor Strange.
Oh wow.
That's
That's
pretty
cool.
Kind of sick, right? Dope. Fans in the chat seeing my Funko Pop collection, and also just every square inch of my bedroom. Welcome. There it is.
All right, we can get started. You want to lead in, Griffin?
No.
Okay, Dave, take us in. Take us in, Dave.
Hey guys, welcome to Steg-Man and Friends Amazing Podcast.
All right.
I'm
All
your
right.
co-host today, Dave Acosta, with my co-host Saladin Ahmed. Say hello, Saladin.
Hey.
Wow, you're good at
With
this.
us today as guests is we got Ethan, we got Griff,
how's it
the
going?
Supples
For the stuff.
today. So we're gonna get going. There's no one else on there.
Wow.
Do you want to be the next person to steal the show? We've already had Charles Soule.
that was slick, man.
I don't need to. Yeah, I don't need to Zdarsky the podcast.
You already seem more qualified to host this podcast than either of those two gentlemen. So
That's good.
good work. Well, first off, this is of course one of our signature Steg-Man live streams. And there's a couple of things that need to happen before it's an official Steg-Man live stream. Folks in the chat, I think you know what we're talking about. Ethan, why don't you go ahead and chain up? I'll go ahead and man bun
Oh
up,
shit!
and it'll be a stream.
Names in the chat.
Oh,
Okay.
It's happening. It's happening. Ryan is on in horror that this is his.
Oh yeah, Griffin wears a top knot. Ugh.
With the chain and the bun. That's what people are gonna call us.
That's actually our rap duo name.
canes and buns.
Well, now that it's an official live stream, welcome to Steg-Man and his amazing friends. Fantastic intro right there by Dave Acosta. Thanks so much for bringing us in, Dave. And it's Ryan Steg-Man's show. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm here with my fellow Michiganders. There's only one of us that's not currently in Michigan on this podcast, and that's Ethan, who lives in. Where do you live, Ethan? Like Mars? Oh, Alaska. That's right.
Ooh, me and Ryan just went for the same bit there. That's the sort of chemistry that you develop over a year of podcasting. Would you say, Ryan?
Yes, I'm looking at my
Okay.
phone. I gotta stop doing that already.
All right. Hey, everybody in the chat. We got a super awesome show for you with Mr. Dave Acosta and Saladin Ahmed. We got two fantastic guests this week. Can you believe it? Answer, yes, you can, because we're the best goddamn podcast out there. That's me cracking open nice sparkling water. So, Ryan, you just mentioned we got several Michiganders on the show here, and that's pretty dope, if you ask me. So, Michigan creatives represent, killing it. We got a whole bunch of comics folks from the Mitten here. Very cool. Where we can kind of go down the line, because Ryan, we've talked to you about it. We know. Saladin, where are you from, man?
I'm from Dearborn. Yeah. It's,
like a lifer? You've been there your whole life?
I haven't been, no. And, I'm in the burbs now. I don't talk about where because there's crazy people out there. But it's, no, serious. But Dearborn raised, man. Fortson High School alumni, 1993. So,
oh, my God. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very
I put in a few years in New York, but I've been back here in Michigan almost 10 years now. So
sweet, I love it here, man. Absolutely. I'm over in Grand Rapids, so West Michigan area. Ryan, of course,
Troy.
You guys are close. You guys are closer. Dave, where are you at, man?
I'm in like the northwestern suburbs a little more. I'm not gonna say either.
Okay.
The funny thing is, Saladin, Ryan, and I are all like within 20 minutes of each other. Like under normal circumstances, we could easily be doing this in person.
Yeah.
Like it's just so funny to go through all this trouble.
you're just down the road.
Yeah.
Well, what, Ryan? We should have made it a whole thing. I could have road tripped across the state for it. We could have had a nice get together, and we all would have had a great time, except for Ethan.
I don't know, Griffin. I think you've been out at the clubs and all that, so I don't think I can be around you. Saladin and Dave, I trust. They have kids. I know they've been staying home.
We have no lives.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm one of those problematic millennials running around and saying, fuck the old people, or whatever the hell they're saying out there. I don't know. Well, that's awesome.
Boomer.
Well, dope, guys. Happy to have you both here. Hey, all right. So up first on the docket, because we got a lot of stuff that we want to chat with you guys about. But most recently, you guys announced a new creator-owned title, Dragon, and I'm super excited to get some details on that. The little bit that we've seen from it is fantastic. Saladin, why don't you go ahead and start? Tell me about Dragon. Tell me about how that came about and what you guys are hoping to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a kind of history nerd and a horror nerd, and Dragon is sort of those things coming together. I've thought about for a long time my angle on the Dracula story. It seems like a story that's been told from a lot of different angles, but one of the things that's always interested me is Islamic history, Middle Eastern history. For obviously personal reasons, but also just for nerd out reasons. And, one of the things nobody ever talks about is the fact that the historical Vlad the Impaler, when they talk about him having this forest of bodies and things like that, those were Turks mostly, right? And it was a conflict with the Ottoman Empire. And so there's this whole cool Middle Eastern medieval story there that I think is there to be told. And it's kind of a nugget of something that's been in the back of my head for a few years, but more recently I kind of had the time and space to think about it a little bit more and who these heroes would be and stuff. And Dave and I took a previous creator-owned project with another writer down the road a little bit, and we didn't get tons done, and it unfortunately never ended up finding a home, even though it was dope. It was about an alien invasion of Detroit, actually.
That sounds sweet.
But just based on his work on that, and then the kind of horror work he's been doing on kind of licensed stuff since, I was like, I knew immediately that he was who I was going to go to with this. And so, so I went to him and I said, here's the pitch. And he was like, yeah, it's cool. And was immediately coming with great ideas. And it's been evolving ever since.
Awesome.
For people that don't know, Dave is part of the Skype group that we talk about sometimes. We've had Riley Rossmo and Daniel Warren Johnson on here, Kenny Porter. Dave is also in that group, so I have seen every page that he's done of Dragon so far, and it's awesome. It's super awesome.
Hell yeah. Dave, why don't you talk to us about some of the work you're doing on there and what's most exciting about it for you?
when Saladin and I have been talking since we did this pitch, like in 2016, we've been trying to do something together.
Mhm.
And last year, he got to me. He's like, "You ready?" And I go, "Yeah." Which and he's like, "Dracula." I'm like, "Oh well, I'm in." Like, I love horror. I've 80% of the comics I've drawn have been horror, which is like weird, right? Like, you don't expect like to have a career drawing horror stuff, but luckily I have. And so I was down, and it's such a unique angle because you've seen Dracula a million times, and even trying to be historical, with Vlad the Impaler, but like I've never seen it from this angle before, and it's like just super exciting. And I've sort of taken a different stylistic turn with it. Like, I'm doing all pencils with like gray wash,
Nice,
like gray watercolors instead of like, so there's no ink on it at all. And
very interesting.
It just kind of fit with the circle and vibe of the whole thing, and it's coming out like, it's kind of surprising me because I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like,
Nice.
this is cool. So that's
it was so funny because we went back and forth, when we were kind of putting together, thinking about who the team would be for this, blah blah, blah. And I was like, well, do you want to ink this? Do you want to hire someone else to ink this? Should we? And we batted back the 4 possibilities, and then Dave was like, well, here's what it looks like without inks. And and here's what it looks like with inks. I was like, no, just do the pencils, man.
Yeah.
And then he ran. We kind of just kept going in that direction, and it's a unique look that I think is really fits like a period book. It feels like almost more like illustration in a lot of places, than like a traditional comic book. And it's exciting. It's cool.
Yeah, knowing Dave, he's like the perfect guy to draw this thing. Because he's a horror weirdo. He's not like a normal horror fan. Like, Dave only likes horror movies from like 1970. And
it's like 73 to like 89.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I watch when I work all day, every day. It's like this era of like probably like the height of VHS rental. Like, I'm just watching all the ones I couldn't rent as a kid.
And Dave also has. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just that matters, right? I mean, Ryan, that energy between writer and artist, right? And the different bond you have with one writer and artist is going to produce a very different book than if you have a different kind of bond with a different artist and writer. And,
no question.
Being of the same age group roughly, and being the same kind of nerd who rented too many VHS tapes and watched, like that you can. There's so much that happens without having to communicate it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's cool. It's cool when you have that kind of energy.
Hell yeah! And of course, Ryan has been dabbling in horror a whole bunch recently between Venom and Absolute Carnage, and we're all very excited to see all that cranked up to 11 in King in Black coming out in December. Nice little plug.
Thank you. Good job.
I've had an inside glimpse. I've had an inside glimpse of that, and it's bananas. It's cool.
The reason I wanted to do this podcast, Ryan, was to welcome you to the Masters of Horror Club.
Thank you.
Saladin and I discussed it, and we think that you're eligible.
Do I get a jacket or something? What do I get?
You get a 6-pack of Coors Light.
Okay.
And small Jets, 1 topping.
Excellent. Okay. That sounds good.
Well, deep dish or round? It's got to be deep dish.
Yeah. Griffin, come on.
Who's getting around? What do you like? 6?
I don't know. Listen, I don't know what everybody's preferences. Fuck it, never mind. How about Cottage Inn though? Cottage Inn is my go-to.
No, we're not talking about this. It's
I guess
Jets.
if you like.
You don't want to have a very specific talk about Michigan pizza chains, Ryan? You don't think that's accessible content?
No. That's what people are here for, to be honest.
I would love to go down the line while we're on the topic of horror, just real quick, and talk about some of your favorite horror stuff or influences, maybe your favorite movie or artist in that sort of genre. What's kind of influenced you the most, maybe in your current projects or just altogether?
Well, I mean, you go, Dave. You go first.
Currently, I have my laptop on a artist edition of Gene Colan's Tomb of Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. That's like the holy grail for me. Like going through Dragon and even like the Elvira stuff. I'm just like constantly swiping from, just trying to like get power from Gene Colan. And Ryan always makes fun of me because he says I'm like 80 years old because I only like artists and stuff that are dead.
Yeah.
But to me, that's it. And then like guys like Kevin Nolan, like he's like an incredible. He does a lot of good horror stuff. That would be for me.
Yeah. No, I mean I'm similar. I have like dorkily old tastes, I mean both in like the horror stuff in film, I mean I was an 80s kid, so I watched every single fucking slasher film from every single franchise multiple times, but when I really like what's the DNA in this book is more like Hammer horror and stuff like that, right? Stuff from like the 60s and 70s, and but artist wise, it's interesting because if I'm thinking of a comparison point for some of the stuff that Dave's doing, although this might surprise him, I'm seeing some Bernie Wrightson, in some of these drawings. And it's making me very happy. So
Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. I think like I saw that as a kid, and I'm just like, oh no, this is what I need to do. Like, this is a thing. Like, you can just draw this stuff.
I'm glad I didn't see that as a kid. I feel like I would have been like, well, I can't do this. On to something else.
Ryan.
No, I never let lack of talent stop me from walking in. Like, oh yeah, let's do this. Let's just get good later.
Absolutely. Just dive in. Ryan, what about you?
What? What are you asking me?
Horror.
The horror stuff.
I don't know. My inner turmoil, my dark soul. Because honestly, I'm not a crazy horror fan. Like, I'm not an anti-horror or anything, but I don't seek out horror as a genre. I do love creepy and eerie, obviously, but as far as like when I started drawing more horrific stuff, I just kind of felt like maybe I am deep down a horror fan who just never was exposed or something. Or again, like I'm just a, fucked up individual who can channel that very easily. I don't know.
I feel like the stuff you've been doing over the last couple of years is more in tune with what your style always was.
Yeah, possibly.
Straight superhero stuff.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I just like gritty, dark shit. That's the answer.
Yeah, man. What about favorite horror movie then? Anything?
I loved. I don't know if this is my favorite. I mean, if Jaws counts as a horror movie, then that's the best. But that's more like a thriller.
The horrors of podcasting over Skype.
Yeah. The Witch. The Witch was, I feel like that's just a recency bias, but that's one of my favorite movies I've ever seen, and that was incredible.
Yeah, man, Robert Eggers. Did you see The Lighthouse?
I love The Lighthouse, yes. It's a very strange movie. I could talk about it for hours, but we're not going to waste the whole podcast talking about that weird-ass movie.
Saladin, Dave, did you see The Lighthouse by chance this past fall?
No.
I haven't seen it.
Was it made past 1989?
It was. Okay. Yeah, past 89 doesn't matter.
You guys saw The Witch, though.
I watched 5 minutes of it.
Surprisingly, yeah.
So, it's interesting because we're talking about Dragon being kind of like taking all this stuff from history and everything like that. Both of Robert Eggers' movies, The Witch and The Lighthouse, are very sort of culturally specific. And he's clearly done his research and everything like that, and so like everything from the costumes to the accents and all of that sort of stuff is like really, really researched and specific in those movies, and that's like part of what is kind of I don't know, all encompassing of it all is sucks you into the viewing experience. So highly recommend those two movies, and that's my plug. For
that leads me to a question. How much research did you guys have to do for this book, and how much just kind of came natural to you?
Oh my god.
I don't know how much Dave. I feel bad because this is also another like artist writer thing. Is like how much reference do you provide, right? And I always, especially if I'm doing something like that's not just superhero in New York City or whatever, I try to be like, here's what they're wearing, here's what the buildings look like, here's what the cups look like, but you don't want to overwhelm somebody, and you don't want to. I don't want Dave to think I'm being like, so make it look exactly like this, right? Because that's not the intent. It's like, but I came to this from prose writing. I've written a novel, I've written short stories, and I've done other kind of historical based comics even. And for me, every project has different demands in terms of how rigorous you want to be. And with this project, I really I tossed a lot of it out the window and was like, fuck it, this is the wrong kind of sword for this era, and this castle wouldn't have been here at this time, and I don't care because it's cool, Knights didn't dress like this but whatever, and so to me it really is kind of like more like a pulpy horror movie in that sense, that the point is not like historical accuracy, it's just a fucking good story.
Well, that makes me more excited for it, honestly. I don't want to be immersed in reality when I'm reading a comic usually.
Yeah, because you want to make it historically accurate, but you have to help the scene, whatever scene you're portraying. And it's like a costume will have a big effect on that. And if it's not totally accurate, it doesn't matter. If it's accurate for the character, that is more important. And if someone points it out, you just say, you're a nerd. Okay, congrats. You get a no prize. So happy. But if the costume helps the scene, then that's the way I'm going to do it.
Right.
Saladin has held my hand like a gentle papa through the whole research thing. He had it all laid out for me before we started. Like, this is what hats look like. They were crazy, because it's like 1450. It's like anything you can find is from a museum or like a wacky ass drawing, like, that's what the peasants look like. That's what, and so there's lots of wild stuff. We try to make it, accurate for the period, but character is the most important thing. So you're going to dress the character to just portray their purpose in the story.
Totally.
But Saladin was super helpful. He had a whole folder of stuff for me to at least start with, because when you're doing history, if you're drawing modern day, you can just make it come off your head because you see people all the time.
Totally.
Or normal people do, not me, because I'm a comic artist. But when it's like historical, you have to have an answer for every question. What is this guy? What is this guy? How's this guy going to look different from this guy? It's like you got two random dudes. You got to make them look, separate. So Saladin had starting points for everything for me, for costumes, location, character design. So at least I could jump off from. He wasn't strict like he said, it has to be like this. It's just a jumping off point, which helped tremendously.
All right, let's take a moment here for you guys to brag. I don't know if we mentioned that this is available on Kickstarter right now and people can support it, but what is the
how dare you mention the Kickstarter? We're talking about art.
What's the dollar amount you guys are at right now on Kickstarter?
$7. So everybody buy a copy now.
Yeah. You guys aren't doing well.
Don't you want us to eat? No. It's I know we've broken six figures, so it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
It's pretty thrilling. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, yeah, guys, go ahead, hop on Kickstarter, go support Dragon. It's going to be awesome. I can't remember. Do you guys have a timeline for that, when that's sort of expected to hit?
I think there's when it's coming out. So we've been super cautious with this because this is, of course, a different kind of beast where we're handling the printing and the shipping and all of this stuff, and so we'll probably be wrapped by the end of the year, but we're talking about something like June to have the whole product finished, printed, and shipped out to people, just in case something goes crazy.
Because you can't predict this year, so
absolutely not.
Absolutely
not.
So
we're just gonna say June.
Real quick, just because I'm not totally sure, have either of you guys done like a fully creator-owned thing before, where you've handled all of it, at least on this scale, or is this your first time experimenting with that?
No, this is new for me. I've done, sort of like stuff at Boom, for instance, with original characters, but that was with that's a very different thing. We've been working with Nate Cosby, who's really brilliant, doing editing and kind of helping package and stuff like that, because it's an invisible job for readers, but editing is this stuff would be shite without it, right? So having somebody in place who has a kind of big picture view of the story and can communicate between everybody has been like super helpful. So yeah, there's nothing like putting this whole thing together yourselves to realize how much work goes into making a comic book, not just the art of the story, but the physical book, right? So it's education, but a cool one.
Sweet. Well, I think that'll wrap up our discussion on Dragon. Next part, Ethan had a fantastic question that he wanted to toss out there, and I'm super excited to get into it. We were mentioning it just a little bit up at the top of the show. Ethan, you want to hop in here? You want to mention something?
Well, I think we all here are fans of this little obscure character called Spider-Man, and that makes us very interesting people when you find that out about us. And Saladin, you're doing awesome work on Miles Morales right now. And that was the first comment we got in the chat for this stream, was that people are loving your work on Miles Morales. And so I'm sure you've been asked this 100 times, but I wanted to ask you personally what the experience was like of kind of taking that baton from Bendis and making that character your own, because I think you've really done it. And I would love to know what that process was like for you.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind. And it's been wild. It's very intimidating, obviously. Nick Lowe, who's the sort of senior editor there for the Spider Office, came to me and said, we want you to take over Miles. And I was like, yes, I would love to. And I was also kind of like freaking out because it was, I'd done some work for Marvel, obviously, but Black Bolt is a kind of like weird, obscure character in comparison to somebody who's got a big, major Oscar-winning movie coming out, right? And so it was a level up, and that's always just kind of professionally that's intimidating because you're like more people are watching you more closely, but also I knew the character meant a lot to a lot of people, and it's Marvel, so you could find like the weirdest, most obscure character, and there's still hundreds of people to whom that means a lot, right? So I've had people come up to me and be like Black Bolt means everything to me, right? But Miles is like a different order of magnitude of popularity, and the reasons are more personal that people attach to him, and so it was all pretty intimidating. But I definitely had some ideas about where I wanted to go with him in terms of bringing him kind of back to being a neighborhood superhero and making him the book about Brooklyn, where I'd lived there for a number of years, and I kind of wanted to make it like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man book, even though there's a different book. Sorry, Peter, that had that name, but but that kind of orientation, and also it being a book about kind of our time, and fans, especially younger fans who are coming to comics now, they're very aware of the world that they're coming up in and in the world that they're dealing with, and they want their heroes to reflect that in some way. And it made sense for me for Miles to be a character that really embodied that. And so it was just fun, and it's been great to be able to stick with him so long and kind of go through different kinds of storylines, and we got some amazing stuff coming up that I'm really excited about. So
that's cool. There were two chat comments that kind of followed up on that. One was asking, it was from Adam on YouTube. He asked what you thought about the big game announcement on the PS5 with Miles Morales, if you're excited for that, and if that adds to your pressure, that kind of attention for your writing when you're working on that character.
I put so much pressure on myself that I don't know if anything, adds to it. But the Miles game looks great. I know folks who are involved in making it who are all very smart and cool people, and so I haven't been involved in it. So it's going to be, like going to the Spider-Verse film. In fact, I was very kind of deliberate. Like, I don't want to see anything from this. I just want to go watch this movie with my kids, and we did, and it was amazing. And so on launch day, I'll buy it like a civilian, and I'll play the game, and and me and my kids will mess around and be Miles. And it's kind of wild with these characters because you can do that. They're so big and they're in so many places at once that even if you're centrally involved in their story, there are going to be other places where you're like, I'm a consumer here, and it's cool. So yeah.
Yeah, and then just one last note to kind of wrap that up. Colin Shelton asked, "What can you tell us anything about your plans, Ultimate Universe wise? What's going on?"
There've been a lot of questions about that because so for those who are not following the Miles book, a villain has shown up in Miles's world who is the Miles Morales of the actual 616 Marvel universe. Because Miles himself, of course, originally comes from another world, right? Another universe, and is one of the few who survived the apparent destruction of that other world. But as it sort of merged with our reality, right? What I've been doing in my book is Miles inexplicably, and a lot of people have said, why does he suddenly not know about this? And the explanation is slowly being unraveled in these issues now. Miles has sort of forgotten that he's coming from another world because these two worlds have started to merge, right? And with them, his memories have sort of repatterned themselves to fit where he's at now. But this villain appears who's traveled back and forth between worlds, and there's a lot of crazy stuff. We've got the Ultimate Green Goblin, who looks more like he looked in the Spider-Verse film, as big sort of monstrous thing. And we got a lot of cool stuff. And then there's going to be like some really crazy ripples coming from that storyline that are going to like introduce, like, people always talk about wanting more antagonists for Miles, and we've got a like awesome kind of arch villain that we're building toward, and lots of cool stuff happening with that. So
awesome, that's great.
Oh, hell yeah. Guys, can we get some chains in the chat for Miles Morales being a super dope character, please?
I did see a question also in the chat that I'd like. I don't remember who asked it, but did you have much talk? Like, did you talk to Bendis much about taking over Miles Morales, or is that just kind of he stepped out of the way and let you go?
We have never met or communicated, and not out of any sort of hostility or anything like that whatsoever. Just sort of, I had the sense, and I understand this as a creator, that he had birthed this kid essentially, right, into the world, and was sort of like, but unlike your actual children, you have to hand these around, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it can be an emotional thing, right? And so I had the sense that he was sort of like, I've done my thing here. Now I'm going to go write Superman, and whoever's going to do whatever with Miles is going to do whatever with Miles. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that was the sense that I had, right? Was that he had this healthy sort of parting of the ways and sort of didn't look back a whole lot, even as he was sort of in other media helping shepherd Miles into the world, right? And so, and for me, and that fit really well with me as a creator, because I'm also, another character I took over was Ms. Marvel, right? And it was a similar process taking over this character from the person who created them, right? Unlike writing like Peter or Cap or something like that, right? Yeah, right. And I was like, I want to respect what you did, but also it just won't work if we try and collaborate on this handover in a super direct way. And so it's been a very healthy process in both instances, and I've been thankful that everybody involved is cool, So,
yeah. I can see that. I think that it would be it could hamper you possibly to talk to him right out of the gate. Like maybe someday when you guys have both written it for a while and you can kind of, talk about it then, and then it'll be interesting. But yeah, that's good.
Totally. And I just want to say, because we're just having some fun in the chat, making jokes about beef and everything like that. But just to clarify, it sounds like there's no beef and everything is totally cool. Just to make sure that everybody.
No, there is beef. Bleeding Cool, right about this. Get this podcast ratings up.
Don't even fuck around about that, you guys, because people run with this stuff.
I'm totally joking.
Miles wouldn't be here if not for
Right.
what Bendis did. And so to me, it's always like you put your own spin on a character, but you always honor the legacy of what came before. And to me, that's what I've been trying to do.
And you've done a fantastic job, brother. Hey, Dave. You, to my knowledge, you have not written Miles Morales.
Well, it was rejected. I keep sending them pitches, but so far nothing. They're just not ready for it. It's just too edgy. It's too good, is what they said.
No, I do want to point something out about Dave. Dave has been working on Elvira for Dynamite Comics for quite a while, and it's like the best kept secret, great art comic book in the world.
Totally.
It's really awesome, and also I think that it's super weird that super weirdo Dave, who clearly would love Elvira, ended up drawing an Elvira book because that is just like perfect.
The funny thing about that is the writer and I, David Avalone, like we've done everything together at Dynamite for like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't working together, and I was like, we were just chatting. I'm like, well, what are you working on? He's like, I'm working on a pitch. What is it? Elvira. And I go, you had better put my fucking name next to yours, because I've been a huge Elvira fan my whole life.
Sure.
Since I saw her Coors Light display at the party store, 1986.
Wow.
And so he's just like, really? I go, yeah, put me on there. And so he got the pitch approved. He only had 5 pages, and then I got on the book, and he's just like, okay, well, how do we finish it? Like he didn't know how to tackle it. He thought it was going to be like House of Secrets, like some kind of horror thing. And I go, it's a comedy. It's like a Bob Hope, but with horror stuff. He's just like, oh, okay. So I sent him all these, like, Ryan, you'll love this, all these 50s and 60s comedy books from DC, like Bob Hope and like anything Bob Oxner used to do back at DC. And I just sent him all that stuff, and he was able to click for him, and it's just been good ever since.
I think it's important to point out that Dave and I are the exact same age, and yet he knows all this weird. It was funny too, because I was making fun of Dave for when I found out he was a huge Elvira fan. I was like, that is a really weird thing for somebody sub 40 to be a huge fan of. And then Ricky Purdon, who works at Marvel, he's the talent relations guy, is an even bigger Elvira fan, because I was telling him, oh yeah, Dave's doing that book, he loves Elvira. He's like, I love Elvira. He starts showing me pictures of him with Elvira at a convention and all this stuff. I was like, what is happening? Is the whole world a huge Elvira fan, and I just didn't know what was going on?
You're not hip to it, man. I'm sorry. It's not hip to it.
Like we were saying, is that every character and concept has a whole group of people that like really care about it. And like the fact that like you can like with comics you can find out that there's an Elvira book and it's great, like that's like crazy.
The best part is now I have a signature character for commissions. It's just like 10 Elvira commissions in a row. Like that's like great. Yeah, I'll draw that till I die. Perfect.
Awesome. So I guess real quick, chat after this we'll take some of your questions. So if you guys want to pop off in the chat, get some questions for these guys, that'll be awesome. We'll get to a couple of them in a minute. But while we wait for those to come in, I want to ask both of you guys, because of course Elvira is this like sort of cult character that we've got, but of course she's stood the test of time, right? And Miles Morales, of course, is going to outlive all of us. And so I just want to get you guys' thoughts on what it's been like working on characters that have that sort of impact, and what it's like having your fingerprints on something as iconic as those two characters.
Go ahead, Saladin.
It's hey, you did you draw the Shadow or something like that?
I did draw, yeah.
Why don't you go ahead, man?
It's I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah.
I know, right?
It's cool because you get to look back at all the different iterations of that character and kind of take the pieces you want, and kind of build your own ultimate version of it. So I've done like the Shadow. I've done Doc Savage, another thing that 90-year-olds love. And Elvira, and it's you definitely feel like you want to do it justice, especially if you're like a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, you just got to do your job ultimately and do what's best for the story. So hopefully you get a good, good story to work with,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Totally.
or, because you don't want to be like, yeah, I'm on Batman, but it's like, it's Azrael's Batman now. Like, like, oh man. So hopefully you get a good era of that character to work with.
Real quick, Ryan has always been just so close to Peter Parker, right? But he's had all these different versions of Peter. He's had Kane, a clone of Peter Parker. He's had Superior Spider-Man, Doc Ock in Peter Parker's body.
Mm-hmm.
He's now working on Venom, a little sort of dark side Spider-Man. So he's kind of been in that park of like, of course you've done Renew Your Vows, which is Peter Parker, of course.
Alternate universe.
But alternate universe Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So
You've never drawn the actual Peter book then?
No.
Right?
Oh no, I did. The first Spider-Man book that I did was Amazing Spider-Man 665, I think, and that was with the real Peter Parker, and that's kind of what got me going in the Spider-Man world. So yeah, I did the one issue of Amazing Spider-Man. I've never done an issue of Amazing Spider-Man though. Otherwise,
You did Venom Inc.
yeah.
That's
Oh yeah, that was also Amazing Spider-Man. You're right. I forgot that came out in that. Yeah, you know what? I've drawn Spider-Man too many times. I'm done.
And you'll draw him a whole bunch more in King in Black out
Mhm.
this December.
You know what though? We kill him on page 2. So.
Oh shit!
Oh, shit!
Ryan.
Oh, cut it from the live feed.
Cut
Sorry.
it.
Yeah.
Cut it.
Saladin, why don't you go ahead with the drawing iconic shit? Drawing
Yeah.
iconic shit.
Yeah, I draw. It just sucks. And never show anyone. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really writing character like Miles or character like Ms. Marvel or Black Bolt, or there are, like you say, there's so many attachments to it. You're part of a legacy, and Marvel is sort of, it's the type of universe where interconnectivity is so stressed that even if you're drawing a Spider-Man book, if you draw enough issues, you're eventually gonna, or writing enough issues, you're gonna write Iron Man, you're gonna write Cap, So I always find my way, for instance, to bring Steve back into it, because Steve Rogers is like, I don't know. It's funny because I'm this rabid leftist that's you wouldn't think is that into Captain America, but I just always, somehow that guy always ends up in my stories, and it's powerful to think about the fact of like, Jack Kirby or Stan Lee or whoever else being involved in this character over the years, and then you're contributing to that. And then people, what's really amazing is when you see, and you ignore all the people who hate it, but when people who dig what you're doing talk about it with each other and talk about it in line with these other depictions that have happened over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's it's cool. It's cool to feel part of something.
It's kind of like when you stare at the stars too long and you start having an existential crisis where you're like, never mind, I can't even think about this.
It's kind of funny you bring that up, Ryan. This tattoo I have on my forearm, you can't see it. It has a Japanese word that is meant to describe that exact feeling of looking up and being like,
yeah, I just try not to think about it. So, like if you're like, oh, Jack Kirby drew this thing, it's like
staring down the barrel of a Spider-Man book, right?
Yeah,
is you're gonna be a part of that forever, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Saladin, how does it compare? Because you did your own prose novels before going to comics, where you created your own mythology from scratch. How does it compare starting from your own to jumping into 80 years of mythology? Is it harder or is it easier?
I mean, it's just really different things. There's nothing like feeling like when you see fan art, right, of a character you made up in your mind that only exists in prose, and then somebody draws that character. It's like, oh, wow, right? But at the same time, unless you're like George R.R. Martin or somebody like that, the scale in terms of popularity is just so different, and in terms of impact is just so different than when you're talking about something that you've created that's in your own world and maybe a few thousand people see it, right? But when you're talking about something that it's a Marvel character and people from all over the world for decades have connected with this character. It's two different kinds of energy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Awesome. Hey, Ryan.
Hey. So
you drew a book called Absolute Carnage. And we had a question in the chat from John Eicher, a good friend of the show, frequent listener, best dude, did some design work for us. He had a question actually about Saladin, your participation and your possible working with Donnie on that. He's asking, did you help kind of write the Miles part in that series or get in contact with Donnie about, because of course Miles goes to a very dark place in that story, and so talk a little bit about the collaboration there or how that might have gone down.
Yeah, there were definitely, I think, some questions that floated up in that crossover, and I think that mostly it was because on paper the events that happened in the two books are the same, but they're from very different perspectives, right? And so they felt like divergent for people, and I understand why. But for me, it was really important to kind of, whenever I do a tie-in, it's important to tell a self-contained story in that tie-in, as well as kind of tell a story that contributes to the larger story. And so, we were walking that line. I think there are places where we were more successful than others, but I think that it was a great book to write. I had a blast with that book. It looked gorgeous. Federico, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce his last name, Vincentini, I believe, just did a beautiful job with that book. And so Donnie and I weren't like in super tight communication, like, day by day, but there's always coordination. Marvel, to make a universe like that work, there has to be some coordination. So I've been at retreats where Donnie had pitched the event beforehand. I'd seen notes, we exchanged outlines, all of that kind of stuff. So it would be absolute chaos rather than absolute carnage if you didn't have that kind of communication.
Dave, would you like to talk about your involvement in Absolute Carnage? Did you have any involvement? He did. Dave did have some. Dave did do some stuff on Absolute Carnage. What did you do, Dave? Uncredited work for me.
Yeah, I can't talk about it.
Dave helped me out with finishing some pages.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll say it. I'll break the news here. Dave had to come to my house at the end of the Absolute Carnage run to help me because I had a bunch of pages drawn, but I needed to finish them. So Dave helped me out with some backgrounds and stuff like that.
Oh,
you were in tears. You were like, Dave, I'm at the end of my rope. I need help. Mm-hmm. You have to come over. Drop what you're doing.
Yep.
Forget your wife and kids and your own art. You have to come over. And I held you as you wept. And together, we finished this.
Dave made me pay him in unmarked bills for some reason. That was strange.
Well, I didn't want it to put me in another tax bracket. My tax guy says,
it's beautiful.
It's cool to just. It's cool to have like a buddy artist that you can just hang out with and both draw.
Yeah.
Because we do on Skype, but it's just like, like another human doing my job. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And I got to look at all your art tools, and I bought everything that you had. Like, I'm like, this is it. This pencil, these little pencil gel grips.
Magic.
That's what's gonna take me to the next level.
And
go ahead.
When you think about it, between Dave working on some backgrounds, Ryan, you drawing it, Saladin doing a tie-in book, and really, like, me and Ethan kind of working on marketing a bit because we plugged the shit out of that book with this podcast and our Twitter. So when you think about it, we all kind of worked on Absolute Carnage in this chat. And I guess what I'm saying is, Ryan, I still haven't gotten a check.
You gotta to get the check.
Griff, cash up front, man.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
You gotta get cash from me in person. I dole it out like Daddy Warbucks if you come to my house.
You know what? Just so then the world knows that Ryan Steg-Man is a fantastic dude. After our signing at Vault of Midnight, he did hand me a couple of bucks, and it was great.
He's got to roll.
Aw.
He's got to roll. You got to catch him in a good mood, and boy,
I got to make it so my wife doesn't know I'm giving away money. It's when she's involved that I don't get to give any out.
Ryan has a lot of cash he's got to hide. So if you can, you can get in on that. Do it.
Dakota asked if I had gotten a coat. No coat yet.
No coat.
Still.
You're freezing.
No coat.
It's a problem. I have a question for Dave and Saladin, but I think Dave should answer this one first. No. Let me ask this question. What?
Well, no, I wanted, before we get away from Absolute Carnage talk, I wanted to say really quick that one of the most fun little twists of Absolute Carnage was getting a Carnagified J. Jonah Jameson.
Thank you. That was really fun to do.
Not only do you write a great JJ, but that made me smile a lot. That I just was so excited to see him turn into that.
Yeah. Thanks. I was glad when they gave us permission to do that.
Now that Ethan's asked the real question, my question is so stupid. My question is as follows. Dave, what's your favorite store?
Oh, Costco. Duh.
Okay.
They have, this is a Coors Light that is from a 36 pack that they sell only at Costco. Pre-COVID, you get a nice slice on your way out or in a hot dog and sit down. Yeah. They don't have tables anymore. I always I call into the Skype group when I'm driving to Costco because it's usually I'm interrupted by kids and stuff. So it's like my free time, and so I call into the Skype group. So they just think I'm always going to Costco.
But it's like twice a week. I mean, it's overkill.
No. And if you're gonna, stock up for COVID, that's the place to go.
That's true.
All right. I would make one thing a month during the quarantine, and I would spend like I was buying a TV, but I would buy that's how much frozen chicken and stuff I would buy. Man,
Dave actually texted me do you need toilet paper? I could drop some.
Yeah.
I was like, you're awesome, dude.
You need anything? Because I got a van full of it. All right, I'm not running out.
Yeah, Dave will send us his picture of his cart from Costco because he's so proud of his haul.
Oh, man. I do so good there.
You're back.
Welcome back, Griffin.
He's back. We got a question that I was interested in from the chat, which was KPHM42.
That's Kenny Porter.
Fuck yeah, Kenny. Yeah. What's up, dude?
He asked what your favorite movie adaptation of Dracula is, and I would add, why is it the recent Dracula Untold?
That's a good ass question.
I actually haven't seen Dracula Untold. Gosh, that's hard. I mean, I'm a pretty I like classic Universal horror. The 70s version with Frank Langella, which nobody ever really talks about, is pretty cool just because it's got that really sleazy 70s lighting where it's it feels like it's kind of a porno, but it's not, and
okay, I like Francis Ford Coppola's version, but I think my favorite Dracula adjacent movie is Dracula's Daughter. It's the direct sequel from Bela Lugosi's Dracula from 31.
Right.
It starts with Van Helsing's on trial for the murder of Dracula in the first movie, and two cops show up, and it starts right at the end of Dracula, and two cops show up, and they're like, "What happened here?" And Van Helsing's like, "I killed him. I killed Dracula. He's in there." And it's so low budget. The cop just opens the door and just looks in. He goes, "Don't look in there." They don't even show a steak of Dracula or anything, and they just well, take our word for it, audience. It is nasty. So they arrest Van Helsing, and then Dracula's daughter shows up, and it's actually really good. The actress is super creepy. It's got a really good creepy vibe. I like way better than Bela Lugosi's Dracula. I love Christopher Lee stuff, of course.
Can I answer this question? I want to say my favorite is the blaxploitation film Blackula.
Yeah.
Blackula. Listen, I just rewatched Blackula and Scream.
Of course you
Scream,
did. You're so
and
weird.
I was real mad because I never knew that Pam Grier was in Scream, Blackula Scream. I would have watched it 100 years ago.
Right.
Like, Blackula is fucking cool.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty kind of scary vampire movie. Actually,
Yeah.
It's not like people. I think the reputation of it is like wow, wow, you know, like 70s blaxploitation. But he's a creepy vampire.
Yeah.
Get this. Okay, the first 10 minutes of Blackula is Blackula. I forget his name, but he's like the king of an African nation. He goes to another king in Europe, and they're talking whatever, and he's like, okay, and the European king he's talking to, the white dude, he's like, okay, I like your wife, I'm gonna take her as my slave, and Blackie's like, the fuck you are, and so he's like, well, guess what? I'm really Vlad the Impaler. I'm Dracula. Okay, I'm taking your wife, and I'm making you a vampire, and I'm putting you in a coffin before you can feed for the first time. So he turns Blackula into a vampire, and then leaves him in the coffin until he's unearthed by this gay couple who are looking for antiques. They find the coffin. They open it up. It's Blackula, and he's ravenous. He's never fed, but he didn't die. So he's been in this coffin the whole time. So he just goes on a spree. Like, it's such a good mix because like blaxploitation was always like surprisingly progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like there's a gay couple, and it's like that. You know, it's like the protagonist, and it's not like, you know, condescending or anything. Like, you just accept it. Okay, this is the couple we're following, and then Blackula eats them, and then Pam Grier. I mean, I'll watch anything with Pam Grier. You're so mad you brought up Blackula.
What I'm thinking is Dave needs to have his own podcast talking about weird old movies and Costco.
It would be like if you could have negative listeners. That's how it would go. I've thought about it before, and I'm just like, nobody needs to talk about this.
Dave, and this offer, of course, goes to you as well, Saladin. If either of you would like podcasts made for you for free, you have our emails.
Supples.
Here's our business card.
Come on over, boys.
Let's do it. Hell yeah, I'm all about it. And of course, Ethan already brought up Dracula Untold, which is I think the best one. And if you guys are going to be invested in Universal's dark universe that is definitely still happening and not an absolute shit show, you gotta watch it.
Yeah,
you gotta watch it.
Is Tom Cruise involved?
He is. He is very
honest,
actually. Yes.
No, I have to watch it. I can't watch Dracula Untold now. I have to wait 25 years. That's just the way I am. Like, then I'll appreciate it.
And then you'll be able to. Yeah, sweet.
This will be the movie that your son is watching when he's 39.
Oh my God. Guess what my son is watching every day, all day? The Munsters.
Oh no!
The apple is on the tree.
Oh my God! I created a monster, and like the best part is I'm too busy to sit and watch it. So I'm like, hey, what happened? How did it end up?
It's very complicated.
It's always like a gag. He's like, Uncle Gilbert sent him a bunch of money to hold on to, but they spent it, and then Uncle Gilbert showed up, and it was a creature from the Black Lagoon in a suit. Like, okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Well, we got a thing from Andrew Bentham Riley that says, first time on the live stream, can my girlfriend Olivia get a shout out? So do you guys have messages?
I wish we could. I'm sorry.
No.
I wish we could.
Those cost money.
Sorry.
All right, hold on. I got one. I got a DJ air horn I'm going to play. Olivia!
We can't hear it.
Oh, I can't even hear it. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if you can see it.
All right, fine.
All right.
Hell yeah. Real quick, while we're still talking about vampires. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Let's get some chains in the chat for Olivia. While we're talking about vampires, I just want to bring up, of course, MCU director Taika Waititi, before his big Thor film, did a little film, What We Do in the Shadows, and I fucking love that movie, and the FX series is pretty great too. You guys checking that out at all?
It's my favorite show. Like,
it's the only show I watch. Literally the only show. I'm so mad it's over.
That show is like one of the few things that brought me joy in the past few months during the quarantine. I was like, oh, new season. Oh, fuck. So yeah, it's
Yep.
and actually the even though it's a comedy, that opening sequence, which is like full of, and occasionally they do a little cut to during the show of like medieval vampire imagery, right? Was really was percolating a little bit in my head while I was working on those scripts and sending Dave references and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're like, the intro of What We Do in the Shadows? I'm like, it's kind of like that, like weird. Yeah.
Is Nandor is in Dragon? Can you confirm this?
Confirm or deny.
Remember, everybody, werewolves, not swearwolves. Just good shit. Taika follows Ryan on Twitter. Ryan, reach out to him. Let's get him on the fucking show.
Well, he might not anymore. I mean, I'm probably on thin ice. He did retweet one time. My son, I gave him a marker to draw a picture, and my son just colored the entire paper black. Like, just filled it. Like, completely black. And I wrote something about how I was very worried about him, and Taika Waititi retweeted it.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, we only ever made this connection with Ryan to eventually get to Taika Waititi, so
that's true. Is it working?
Eventually. Oh, it's going. It's going.
It's maybe another 50 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
We're gonna
another couple of years of free work.
I've got Taika Waititi. I've got a Hemsworth brother, the one that nobody knows. He follows me. Now he probably he's probably in the chat right now. Yeah, he is still following me. Okay, great.
Hell yeah.
Most famous person that follows me is Fred from Honolulu from The Best Show.
Oh yeah, we were both geeking out about that. Do you guys know The Best Show? No, it's a podcast that Dave and I are obsessed with. Yeah, and I
know of it.
He's a caller who calls into the show, and for some reason, Dave and I were like, "Oh, Fred from Honolulu followed me."
He's so angry that I can't believe that he would like anything. So I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So real quick, as we're winding down, one thing I want to touch on is that actually while we've been doing this, Donnie Cates has been doing a virtual panel about his new book Crossover, which was just announced. So we had somebody in the chat wondering what the hell was going on with the show and why Donnie's doing that and not this. Well, of course he's gonna do that. He's got to chat up his brand new thing. And can we just say that cover for Crossover #1 is fucking awesome. It's really just incredible. So we wish him. Oh damn! Let's get some chains in the chat for our buddy Donnie Cates, who's not with us tonight, but he is plugging a super dope book.
Ethan, you should be jiggling your chains every time he says chains from the chat. Like, okay.
There we go. And
you need some Jacob Marley chains every time.
Yeah.
The chat.
So just to kind of wrap it up, Saladin, Dave, you guys got any sort of like, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Anything, your own stuff or other people's stuff? What do you want to plug while you got us? You got 35 people in the chat right now.
Yeah, I exclusively read my own stuff. Oh gosh, what I'm reading a lot of middle grade books because I read with my kids every night. So right now I'm reading a book called The Battle, which is a middle grade novel about, it's a kind of like Jumanji type thing with kids sucked into a game, and it's pretty fun. And then playing that new Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, how do you like it?
Is that cool?
It's gorgeous. I mean, it's just, I can't afford as many hours as I want to put into it, but it's like, it's my samurai simulator that I always wanted. So,
that's
fun.
Hell yeah. Dave, how about you?
I'm watching a film from 1983 called Mausoleum.
Like as he's doing the podcast, probably.
I've been watching it on the exercise bike lately. I usually watch stuff while I work, but I haven't had a chance to be at the board last couple of days. So I'm watching it in pieces. It's great. I highly recommend it. It's like Evil Dead meets Dallas.
Naturally.
Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi, another Michigander and MSU alum.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking love those movies. So goddamn good.
Just
you know what's
Dracula Motherfucker by Alex Campi and Erica Henderson. I'm very excited because I'm like, another Dracula book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotta get it.
Never enough Dracula stuff. Ryan.
And then I'm really looking forward to King in Black, #1, December.
For when that sweet money comes in and you have to help me out again.
I know. I'm starting to get the cold sweat.
Dave, I need you.
Ryan, you watched Sonic with your kids yet?
I did not watch Sonic with my kids yet. What did I?
Oh, you should. You should.
I'm trying to sell them on Rookie of the Year right now. That's my plan.
Rookie of the Year. You're talking about the one where he breaks his arm and he's a hit for the Cubs. Oh,
Henry Rowan-Gardner.
Yeah.
But they're really fighting me on it, so we're just kind of we're at a stalemate at the moment.
It's a great film.
So we just been going back to watch Full Metal Alchemist together until I can get them to come over to my side.
Are you watching the original version or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood?
The original.
Interesting. I haven't watched it. I've watched Brotherhood, and I thought it was dope.
I don't know if you guys know this. Griffin studied film, but he also studied anime. He's the guy that knows everything about anime.
He doesn't know anything about anime, does he? Do you?
I really don't. I just got into anime in the past year or so, and so I'm just watching all the seminal
the biggest
stuff.
weeb that I know.
Oh my god!
You got to talk to Kenny Porter. You got to have a Kenny Porter podcast talk about anime.
Listen, I've chatted with Kenny before. Kenny's the best dude. He's been on the show before, and I just texted him the other day. We're gonna have him. We're gonna do a little Kenny Porter week. We're gonna have him on Steg-Man, and we're gonna have him on Supple Boy. It's gonna be great.
Right.
So there's a little tease for the next couple episodes.
Kenny Porter is he's like my personal Google.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I have a question, I'm just like, Kenny, how did Thomas Wayne make his fortune?
Oh yeah, you did that today. You did, and he had an answer for you. He was ready to go.
Awesome. It's so awesome.
It's like, he's so rich. He's just a doctor. He'd be rich, but how do you get rich? So any dumb question like that, before I Google it, Kenny's just going to give me the answers.
Here's what I do is with Dave is I'll be like, hey, I watched 10 minutes of some weird movie yesterday, and then I just describe the weirdest part that I saw, and he's like, oh yeah, that was, and he tells me everything about it, and I'm like, oh cool. You're a weirdo.
The best is when you talk about music. You're like, what's the worst Rolling Stones record?
Yeah.
And I'll be, oh man, it's Black and Blue, obviously.
Yeah, Dave has a history with music. We didn't get into that. Maybe we'll have you back someday. What's that? But Dave was in a band that basically was like Kiss, where they wore makeup.
It was low rent Kiss.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
You didn't know that? Oh, you got to get Dave to send you some pictures.
I didn't.
Yeah, you need to see these pictures.
I had no idea. What instrument do you play?
Guitar, and we did harmonized guitars a la Thin Lizzy.
Oh wow! Really?
It was super poppy for metal. We didn't detune the guitars or anything it did in the
right.
Ethan and I are actually working on a cover of Thin Lizzy's iconic "The Boys Are Back in Town," of course, being titled "The Supple Boys Are Back in Town."
Okay.
So super excited for that.
I'll tell you right now, it's in A flat.
Okay.
And then it goes to A flat, B, and then F sharp.
Actually, we've been super excited about this. We've been prepping it. We've been waiting to do it live on the show. Dave, you're gonna play guitar. Ethan, are you ready?
Yeah.
We actually one of our Black Bolt covers was a knockoff of that Thin Lizzy album cover for Jailbreak, where they're all running away and the guy monitoring them, and yeah.
Who the hell drew that? Because it totally looks like a Marvel cover, and I never figured out who drew that.
Oh, so interestingly, it's an artist. Jim Fitzpatrick, who's an artist from the '70s, who also designed the famous Che T-shirt logo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't think we got any questions about Black Bolt, but we just got a dozen statements about how fucking awesome Black Bolt is, your Black Bolt series. So that's just worth noting.
As mostly Christian, but
well, hey guys, I think that'll probably wrap us up for the show here. I think fantastic conversation, fantastic having you guys with us. Any last words for the folks before we leave it off for the night?
Saladin, what's the link? Kickstarter.com.
I think it's actually if you just go to Kickstarter.com, we are the project of the day today.
Oh,
So,
really? I didn't know that.
I think yeah. I think we're the first thing you see on there. So, or at least we were a couple hours ago. So, yeah.
Please support it. It's like people have been asking about tiers and stuff, but we designed it where it's the ultimate version we want to do is the version everyone's going to get. So it's oversized, hardcover, glossy paper, and there's going to be tons and tons of bonus stuff in the back. We didn't want to have tiers to unlock stuff. It's like that's the way we wanted it. So that's the book people are going to get. So please check it out.
Awesome. Hey, real quick, what are your Twitter handles? So then the people that definitely already follow you on Twitter can still follow you on Twitter.
I'm just Saladin Ahmed, all one word. SALADINAHMED.
Dope.
All right.
I'm Dave Draws Good.
Awesome. Ryan is at Ryan.
Was taken.
Ryan is at Ryan Poopy Pants.
Ryan Steg-Man. I have two parting thoughts. Number one, congrats guys on the Kickstarter. I'm so happy for you. It was really cool watching it blow up. And my second thought is Dave once punched the drummer of his band in the back of the head. Go on.
That's not true. His buddy punched me in the face.
Oh, that's
was on stage.
On stage, Dave got punched in the face.
I fired the drummer on stage, and then
holy shit!
All right, go ahead.
That's pretty metal.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, real quick, because Dakota Crow's got a late question in here, and he's a great dude and good friend of the show, so I wanted to get it in there real quick. What would be Black Bolt's favorite song, and what instrument would he play?
Not singer.
There's that Philip Glass song that's like 3 minutes of silence, basically, I guess. And he's actually very skilled on the triangle, but most people don't know that.
Oh, that is cool.
Dave, as a musician yourself, would you any sort of insight on that, on what Black Bolt would be into?
The boys are back in town, probably.
Very good. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Steg-Man and His Amazing Friends. Hey, if you listen to the podcast version, the audio version, you're probably like, hey, where's the episode? It'll be out after this one. After we record this one, last week's will be out. It's a fucking mess, and I'm sorry. And the Supple Boys, thank you for your patience.
It's fine. You're doing great. Okay. These people,
thank you, Dave. Thank you so much, Dave. That's the sort of reassurance that I am looking for that Ryan Steg-Man doesn't give me.
I do not provide that.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Where can you find the show? We're on Twitter and Instagram at Stegman Show. You can find me at Griff Sheridan, Ethan at Tales to Astonish. We're the Supple Boys. We have our own show called Supple Boys as part of the Amazing Friends Network. You can check that out, as well as Donnie Cates's Devil's Advocates Book Club. We've got a few episodes of that out right now, with more on the way soon. So please check all those out. All those are just right on the Stegman Show handle on Twitter, so you can stay up to date. You can follow all the shows on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean.com with, I don't know, maybe a hub website coming pretty soon. I don't know, Ethan.
It'll be sick.
We're learning a little something about branding. Interesting.
Oh, shit. Wow.
Thank you so much for listening, watching. We love you guys. Drop some more chains in the chat to leave us off. Ryan, good job.
I know.
Yeah, stay amazing, friends.
Stay amazing, friends. It's not the name. It's not the tagline of the show.
The official tagline of the show.
It's